Okay, the village of Sayward respectfully acknowledges that we're on the land we are gathered on is the unceded territory, the Comox First Nations, the traditional keepers of this land. Call the meeting to order. Introduction of late items. CAO? Done? You? Everybody's good with the agenda? Minutes of previous. The minutes of the regular council meeting that was held on September 7th, 2023 be adopted. Motion, please.
I'll move that.
Second,
I'll second that.
discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Hearing none, motion's carried. And that the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting that was held on February 14th, 2023 be adopted. Motion,
I'll move that.
second,
I'll second that.
discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. And just in time, petition delegations. Serena Gill and Sean Manzer. Property orders at 711 Kelsey Way. You have 10 minutes. Oh, well, that's perfect. Time that late.
Hi, thanks for having us. Good to see you again. We have updated drawings of the building lot. I didn't get to meet everybody yet, but hello. So the only thing that's changed since the agreed tiny home proposal that we discussed last time was that we're not doing tiny houses and we're doing concrete pads. So that's basically the gist of it. And we have a big drawing. I don't know where to lay them out or show you or give you copies afterwards, but we have a whole package here for you to look through if you're interested. And there's the building permit paperwork to go along with that.
Perfect. Yeah, that you can give to Kira, our new CAO.
And that's that. Any
That's it.
questions?
So you're moving from tiny homes into concrete pads. What does that mean?
Well, it means it's more permanent.
Is it
Um,
still,
I'll take over.
Bill?
So basically, we went, we were denied tiny homes on wheels. So we had, the engineers draw houses,
Thank you.
their actual houses on foundations.
oh, okay.
That's the layout of the property, so there's 5 buildings to be proposed for the final outcome. We do have another render of the big sheet. Maybe that'll answer some questions.
So this is a completed permit, all ready to go. It's all engineered and on. If you guys are interested in seeing the actual house,
Those copies are for the village, is that right?
these copies are yours. It's being handed in with. They're not large.
Instead of the phrase tiny home, they're micro homes.
Whatever.
They're not on
So,
wheels.
I see.
But they're actual foundations built on site.
Tiny homes is only tiny homes if they're on wheels?
Right.
Huh, okay.
There was no real precedence for the whole permit process, so it's hard to make happen. But there's a lot of precedence for. It's just a basic building.
Okay, perfect.
So, yeah, it's all pretty basic. It's, Kier has the details about the buildings and, for tenants and that's the drawing.
Excellent.
And I think the only difference was a change in, or a variance in the zone. That's what it came down to.
Perfect. Council, anyone have a question? Councilor Burchett.
Are there any shared amenities with your design plans?
No, every unit will have its own amenities. They'll all be individual.
Councillor Tinsley.
What's the approximate square footage per unit?
14 feet by 24 feet.
I think it's like 466 total with the exterior deck.
And they will be facing the street, right? That's our final.
They're on that,
It shows, that was a
That's,
Question
Councillor
for-
Tinsley has that.
which is actually part of the permit, so we'll need that.
Oh, you'll leave that back. Okay.
That goes with the permit, so yeah, you guys will have that as soon as we leave today.
Quickly as it comes, as quickly as it goes.
It came up last time too, and so we, there is 2 designated parking spots in each site per se. And yeah, it's all laid out on here, so there won't be any street parking. And even though it says there's 2 per unit, there'll be probably lots of space for more, because there's only 5 units on here compared to what the 7 that is there now.
That was going to be my question. I recall that your first proposal had 6 units on the property.
I think we're going for 7 because there's 7 there now, so we were trying to utilize the space that's there, but
Okay.
But when you go to actual buildings with fire separations and foundations, you
didn't turn out that way.
have to go right.
Yeah.
So this is what the engineers have.
Right.
So does that include all of the property, or does that just like the lots are, there's 2 lots there now, so one's,
So this is only the 1 parcel, and there will still be the 2nd parcel that'll be untouched.
We had some look at. Maybe.
Yeah, there's some interest on that 2nd parcel.
Thank you, Councillor Burchett.
So is the construction to be done all at once, or is it one at a time, and kind of your time frame for completion, please?
It'll be 3 at once, and the following year has the details. Yeah. Just because of the time.
We're going to utilize the space that we have available now, and 2 phases basically. And each phase will be quick. I mean, under 6 months, I would
The
think.
first 3 will be done by summer.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you, CAM.
Just so council's clear about steps, so the next step will be for the property owners to submit an application, a development application, which of course will include the request for rezoning as well. And then staff, along with the approving officer, would review that application, create a staff report for council, and then bring that back to the council for your consideration. So just in, tonight you've heard a couple of times here mentioned, it's conversations we've had, but the details, nothing's been agreed to. The details, all of the details will come out and be outlined in that staff report. Through the chair, I'm not sure if John Manson has anything he'd like to add.
No, not at this time. I think you summarized it well.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate you coming out.
Hi, John. Nice to see you over there.
Great. Nice to see you guys too.
Thank you.
Very good.
You won't need us anymore, so you don't mind if.
No, it's all good.
Yes.
Drive safe. Okay, next we have Chris Cully, General Manager of Main Roads Island Contracting, LP Winter Maintenance Procedures. Please. Sorry, the reason for this is so online they can hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I had very brief conversation with previous CAO, I guess, then all I was asked about was, answer some questions about snow and ice control, so not really sure how versed the council is on provincial contracts and how they work with the ministry, or how our snow and ice program works, so I mean, I could give a broad overview or just answer
A
questions.
broad overview would be the way to go.
Sure, okay.
Please.
Yeah. So highway maintenance in BC outside of municipalities is all the provincial infrastructure. The province is divided into 28 different service areas. So this is service area 3, which starts at Cook Creek Road down south of the Comox Valley, just south of Buckley Bay, and goes to the end of the island and includes Denman, Hornby, Quadra, Cortez, Alert Bay, all those islands as well. So it's actually, service area 3 is a pretty big area. It's 2/3 Vancouver Island. It's one of the bigger service areas in the province. The contracts are let every 10 to 15 years. So they're a 10-year contract with a 5-year add-on at the ministry's discretion, whether or not they feel that it's a good time to put them back out to tender or not. Usually they go the full 15 because it's quite an expensive ordeal to tender 28 10-year contracts across the whole province. So currently we're in year 5 of the 10 or 15 years here in service area 3. We took over from MCON 5 years ago, as you may know. So those contracts all came out. We were down in area 1, Main Road, which is South Island. And we lost that one to MCON, and we won area 2 and 3 from MCON, which is Central and North Island. So it was a bit of a swap. So the contracts are, the interesting thing about the contracts from Vancouver Island perspective that I find is they're a provincial standard. So the roads in Sayward are seen exactly as the roads outside of Chetwynd, and they have the same specifications, the same funding. There's no difference from a provincial perspective of Highway 19 or a highway in the Coupons. It's the same specs, and you can really see that where, you know, technically under the specifications, we don't even have to plow a side road until it gets over 15 centimeters, which on Vancouver Island would be disastrous. You know, and Highway 19 here is what they call a B-class road, and I think the spec for a B before you have to plow it is 6 centimeters, which is even, that's a lot. So obviously the specs don't apply here the same way they do elsewhere in the province. So all their roads are divided into classifications, summer class and winter class. And winter class is usually the more important one in this area. It's A, B, C, D, E is the winter class. A being, in this area, is just Highway 19, basically south of Roberts Lake. It turns to a B classification at around Roberts Lake, and it's just the warrant is traffic volume, right? So when you get more south, there's more traffic, so it's a higher classification of road. C roads, which is the next one, are like your school bus routes or main arteries. So if there's a school bus, it'll be a C road. So the road to the highway here, I think it is Sayward Road, right? Correct. That's a C road. So when you get to the highway, then now it's a B road. And then all the specifications are based around response times on those types of roads. So the way we look at it, and our partners with the ministry too, is the specs more mean priority to us, right? So if it starts snowing, we're not going to wait till it's 6 centimeters. It starts snowing, we do A's, then B's, then C's, then D's, and that's sort of the progress of all the roads. The specs do say that you have to pre-treat A and B roads. So we have to pre-treat Highway 19. We don't technically have to pre-treat Sayward Road, but we usually do because it just ends up being more difficult if we don't. Yeah, so the other side of the contracts is they're divided into 2 components in a way. One piece is what we call routine. So that is like winter maintenance, pothole patching, things like that, that no matter how much you have to do, if it's a bad winter, you still got to do it all. If it's a mild winter, you don't have to do as much, but we get paid the same. So that's sort of the risk side that the contractor takes on. So when we bid these, we look at averages. Some years you do good, some years not so good, but you still have to meet the specs. And then the other half of the contract is called quantified, and they basically give us an allotment. So ditching, vegetation removal, like mowing, trees, paving, signs, all that kind of thing. They say you can do X amount of lineal meters or tons per year. And that's what you can do. And after that, there's no more money or allocation, call it our allocations. So at the start of the year, we look out and we say, okay, there's all this work we have to do in service area 3. And then we have to prioritize it to get it in those allocation amounts. And we give the ministry, it's like, okay, here's what we say our priorities are. You guys have anything different? Then they might say, well, we really want this done instead of that. And so that's the negotiation. But it's not as much as any of us would like. We could spend our quantified plan 5 times in 1 year. Just an example, we have 3,600 kilometers of ditch and we get 85 kilometers of ditch in a year. So we really have to prioritize, and it just kind of ends up falling back to, the safety defects. So is this a safety issue or is it a nice to have issue? We get rid of all the safety stuff first, and then we start looking at the nice to have. And then we also try and plan for where we can sort of life cycle management, right? So if we know while we're in an area, maybe this isn't so bad, but we're here, let's get it all done. And then we don't have to come back here again. And this area is good for a bit. We do a lot of that as well. Example of that is when we did, so last year and a half ago, we did a bunch of patching on Sabre Canyon Hill. And while we were there, we did a few more patches that they weren't bad. They weren't going to blow out. Give it a year, they're getting there. So we did like more. So we took allocation from another area and put more on Sabre Canyon Hill than we needed to, just so that it was good for a bit. We didn't have to come back as often. So the other side of it is when the province does have extra money, they give us money for additional maintenance services. So we do get that. They recognize that this area is brutal for vegetation. Like we have the same spec here as in Prince George, but it's Jurassic Park there compared to Prince George. And that was really highlighted last year when many of you remember how many times we had trees coming down on Highway 19 through the winter with that freeze thaw. We actually, between Highway 19 and Highway 28, we had 4,800 trees come down on the highway that we had to clear off. So that kind of raises the eyebrows of the ministry a bit. So we've been petitioning them pretty hard to do something about the tree problems along the highway. One, from a safety perspective, trees coming down while you're driving that road isn't good. We actually had one come down on our Sabre patrol truck and rode it off and smashed the cab radio. Luckily the operator was fine, but the Sabre patrol truck was written off. The tree came down on it while he was out there checking out things.
That's a little dangerous.
Yeah. So we have actually been pretty successful. They're giving it to us in piecemeal. You may see a few different machines out there. They want to sort of get some methodology down. We've got a wheeled ballard butcher type machine working right now to see if it's the right one. We've got hand fallers working. So we're trying to get that buffer zone back so that the highway's a bit safer. The other side of it is if you can't daylight the road, it can't dry out. So it's just a never ending battle. If the road doesn't dry out, it's harder to deal with in a winter maintenance perspective, but moisture is the enemy of asphalt. So that's why we crack seal and spray patch and things, because once the water gets underneath, expands, pushes the road, and that's how you get that alligator. It'll help with the length of the road too. So summation, I guess our contract is 3. It's we get an annual lump sum, and half of that is routine and half of it is quantified allocations. And then on top of that, if the local ministry can get extra funding, there is a pool within the province, but they have to kind of go seek it out and compete with the rest of the province for that money. Another good example is we were able to just get a bunch of money for the Sabre Bridge redeck. So we're redecking that whole bridge, all the wood's coming off, but all brand new wood on the bridge. You probably get your notification tomorrow, so fast track information. We're going to start it on March 6th. Should be book it 2 weeks, but the crew thinks they can get it done in maybe 2.5 if they really work hard. So that'll be an inconvenience to the community for sure, because we'll be doing a lot of closures. I think the details of the closures will come to you guys in a stakeholder notification from the project manager shortly. But that bridge is getting totally beat up, which is good. So it's getting too tired.
There's a few.
Yeah, there's a few, absolutely, yeah. As far as, you know, the first query was around snow and ice control. So the way it works in these contracts again is, so when we tender them, the tenders are mostly judged on technical. So it's not a cheapest contractor gets the bid. There's a big technical scoring process first, and you get points on technical. And if you don't pass a certain threshold, they won't even look at your price. So a lot of the contracts in the province are actually the most expensive bid one. So we submit how we're going to do winter maintenance on a moderate storm across the service area, and that's all judged and scored. And then annually we have to submit a winter plan, and they go over that with us. You know, we're going to have this many trucks here, and then we give them our crew schedules and our stockpiles and their application rates and all that kind of stuff. And they look at it and approve it. And then they audit us on it. So the ministry's up saying, all right, said you're going to have 3 to 5 trucks in Sayward and 8 guys on shift in a stockpile, and they can bring in, do you have it? And we'll come up and look at that. So then when winter starts, we go on winter shift somewhat as weather dictates. We usually start in November. So we double our crew size in winter. I think Sayward actually does even more than double because we have 3 regulars here in the summer and it goes to 8 in the winter. And then through the winter maintenance, we use brine mostly as a pre-treatment. The main reason we use brine is it's become an industry standard. When you're putting down crystal salt, what you're trying to do is make brine because salt requires moisture to activate. And there's a curve to freeze protection. And it's quite interesting if you look at it, if you Google it, but 23.3% salinity is the best possible freeze protection. But as soon as you go higher, it reduces very quickly. So if you look at a curve from 0 to 23, it goes like this, but then you hit 23 and it shoots right back up. So there's been a lot of problems with brine in the past where people were doing things just not understanding the chemistry of it, putting brine on salt and basically you're making ice cream. You're completely making it worse. So the goal of putting even crystal salt is to try and get that 23.3 salinity. So it's very hard with crystal. It bounces, scatters, flies off with the next truck. Whereas brine comes out at that. So we put it down. We know what the freeze protection is. We know it's more consistent than anything else. It stays there. The next semi that goes by doesn't blow it off the road. And we can make sure it's there. We do use crystal salt in this area in particular because it's wet. So if it's too wet, it gets too diluted, right? So if you have a wet road, tonight would be a good example if it had rained this afternoon. You got a wet road out there, right? And we know tonight it's going to go well below 0. We know that what moisture is going to freeze on the road. We'll put out some crystal just to combine with the moisture already on the road because we know when we're putting it down, it's activating. But sort of the golden rule is you never salt a dry road because you're not going to do anything because salt dries, it brings in the moisture and there's no moisture for it. It's just going to sit there like little pebbles and bounce around and not do anything. And then sand is our reactant. So this area, this last year even, and well, the whole service area, we don't have a lot of winter, but we get what we call a contractor's nightmare all the time. And that's that it's -1, it's +1, it's -2, it's 2, because there's not much you can do when it's +2 and raining. And then the rain stops and it freezes at night. You can't salt that, it's washed out. Can't brine it, it's washed out, it's going to freeze. So, when we do our training, we do all sorts of scenarios and we give scenarios like that and ask the operators, what are you going to do? And the word is, be very nervous. Like it's going to freeze. We cannot stop that, but our contracts do have restore traction specifications. So for example, on Highway 19, it would be we have to mobilize within 2 hours of knowing about an icing issue. It's still a lot of time, right? So our training is to if we know it's gonna be like that, we load sand and we patrol. So you're just out there and maybe hitting the corners, the steep bits, you know, the guys live here, they know all the hot spots and bad spots, right? So they're supposed to be out there with sand. That's our reaction. Because the problem is in this area, especially in the North Island, we get forced into reaction all too often. Because it's just that if it would stay 10 to -10, we'd be solid. We'd be fine. And we saw a prime example of that. I'm not exactly sure how it was up here, but I know for sure in the Comox Valley, we had an event just at the end of November, first couple of days of December there. And it was very difficult because froze, it turned into compact, and it would kind of melt in the day, and people would drive on it and it'd freeze again, it would rut, but our plows couldn't scrape it off. There's not enough graders to get it all off at once, and it would freeze and then melt. And, you know, we had a lot of people upset about it. And then the next event just before Christmas, there was barely any complaints. Everyone said, you did great. We did the exact same thing. We didn't change our strategy whatsoever. It just stayed cold. Got cold, it stayed cold. We could stand any compact scenarios, so there wasn't rutting. And then as soon as it started to warm up, we could take it off. So there's a lot of scenarios where the weather just fights us. And if you guys do see that it's just around zero, we're going to have troubles out there for sure. And we're going to be forced into reaction, and there's going to be black ice. Like it's not preventable. If it's been rainy and stuff, if it stays cold, we're good. If it stays warm, we're good. It's that up and down. So I think there was a few cases where we definitely had some black ice on 19 over the last couple months. You know, if the road can't dry out, or if we get too much moisture, we're forced into that reaction. And even if, you know, some people try and put out sand ahead of time, and that can work with limited success, because if it's not restoring traction, it's getting blown off the road. So you get 2 or 3 semi trucks drive by, and we're just with all sands in the ditch. And now our guys up in Was thinking the road's great. So that's an issue for us as well. We try and preach in no security blankets. So, you know, you can go from Seward to Was and think you got it all nice and brined or sanded and think I'm good. No, we still patrol. We still have to make sure, because with those little microclimates and those little shaded areas, you know, even 50 meters could be a sheet of ice. Means it's highly unsafe right now, right? So that's a bit of a nutshell.
Thank you.
The other thing is, I mean, if Mayor and Council has any concerns or issues going forward, you know, it's the first time I think we've met, but we can make sure you guys are on the stakeholder information list, because we have been since COVID doing it on Zoom, because then more people can attend easier, especially with the geography we're dealing with here. And we do like Port McNeil, Port Harvey, Elvis, they were kind of the northern communities, sort of what our plans are this winter, what we learned from last winter.
Yeah, you could put us on the list, and
Yeah.
for our CAO to be involved in that, that would be great.
Absolutely. And then, you know, we do have our 24-hour number, which we get most of our calls in, but I'll be frank, not a lot of people from Seward call. I think they probably just talk to Fred, because it's sometimes small communities, people just, you know, they know the person, right? But if you guys are noticing any trends whatsoever or issues that you're having, feel free to reach out to me directly by email or phone. I'm always open to that, because things can be timely. You might want to talk about something right now you're seeing, then wait till we can all get around together. So
Yeah, well, we'll start with whoever has a question.
Yeah.
Councillor Bichette.
Yeah, are you using beet juice in your brines up here? Is the climate conducive to that?
You know, I personally don't know too much about beet juice. Main Road as a whole, we're not using it. So Main Road is across BC and Alberta. So in 88, highway maintenance privatized. And the rule of the day was, so all the highway maintenance employees that work for the government, if you want to form your own company, we'll give you first right of refusal on a contract. So some guys in the lower mainland passed around hat and created Main Road. And so they've had that contract since privatization in the lower mainland and then expanded. So we're still actually an employee-owned business. And we do a lot in Alberta now. We have the Kootenays, lower mainland, mid North Island. And none of us are using bee juice. They're experimenting with it in Alberta, not us, but some other contractors. It's really just to keep salt on the road, and drivers hate it. They're finding it stains your vehicle. It's bee juice. So I think the amount of winter we get here, I don't think it would warrant experimenting with it, especially with we're not down to those cold climates where you might want to mix in some magnesium chloride and get it stuck on the road.
Anyone else have a question? One of the things that we've seen before, because of course we travel back and forth to Campbell on a regular basis. So when you're going in, for example, early in the morning and there's been a snow event the night before, generally between those hours, like say 6 a.m. to 8 a.m., 8:30, there doesn't seem to be any clearing on a regular basis for that time frame. And I know there's a lot of traffic coming north to go to work at 5 in the morning, 6, but there's also a bunch of people from the North Island heading south to their job in Campbell.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem to be getting a lot of attention after a snow event between here and you notice a bit of a difference when you get to Roberts Lake or, past the Menzies.
Yeah, Roberts Lake, the Campbell River cruise.
Okay. Yeah, and we see that difference in a lot of the times in what's not.
Okay.
So that's something that I'm curious about, because I know when I went every day back and forth to Campbell, it was an issue. And now my wife is experiencing the same thing.
Okay. I'll look at that because we run in the winter, we run 10-hour shifts, 2 10-hour shifts a day. So we have 8 staff out of Sayward Yard. So there's 2 on at all times, because when it snows, they move to 12s. So there's 2 shifts on each day. When it's not snowing, they stick on 10s and there's a bit of overlap. So there should be 2 people on at all times, just going up and down, and they should be doing the roads by that prior.
From where to where?
From 19. So
all of 19 to Hardy?
No, to Was.
To Was.
To Was and back.
Okay.
So they should just be looping them. It is strange to hear. It looks like that. Everything we do, and we have to provide it by the ministry, is tracked by GPS. I can see at any given moment or back in history where the vehicles were, what they were putting out, what blades were up, what blades were down. So I can check that and just double check that their deployment strategy is what we asked for. Because depending on the severity, that's the other side, is if it's still, while it's snowing, they have to basically stay on 19. So if it's snowing all night, they're just up and down 19. Breakdowns do happen. So that can happen. We have had, and this is part of the tree issue, our deployment strategy and the whole tender thing relies on the cycle times, right? So we've measured, our bid team has measured like snowfall, how far a plow truck can go within a certain period of time. So how many trucks do we need to clear a road in a certain amount of time? They don't factor in the 15 trees the guy had to get out of his truck to chainsaw off the road. And that really slows down our cycles. And that's when we start failing on the keeping up with the accumulations, because every 200 meters, the guy's getting back in the truck, sawing off a tree, getting off the road, gets back in the truck, and now that cycle time is cut quarters sometimes. And we've had some mechanical issues this last winter. We do have spare trucks, but I tell you, my personal vehicle broke down as much as these tangents do. We've got great mechanics and a great PM program. They're fairly new trucks, but the reality is we don't drive trucks down the road, we drag them. So there's a lot more wear and tear and hydraulic problems, and like we put salt all over everything, and electronics go because of it. So we have a pretty good fleet. We do have the spare, and if one in the Sayward breaks down, we'll kick up a truck from Campbell River, and we kick up a truck from Cumberland, and even kick up a truck from Parksville and push them up north. But then, it slows us down. Yeah.
Understandable. Okay, CEO, you had a question?
I was just interested in the bridge project, which I think I heard you say begins on March 6th.
Yes.
Can you just maybe give us all an overview of what that's going to look like in regards to closures, the amount of time between openings? I'm thinking of a couple regular traffic groups, the school bus, if there'll be consideration for getting that school bus through as quick as possible so that it can meet its intended timelines. And then I happen to know I don't know if you're going to be beginning work at 6 o'clock. I mean, I know there are some groups of traffic, like the water taxis over to Hardwick are loading up at 6 a.m. So it would be great if the traffic into Sayward was open at, say, 5:30 to 5:50 in time for all those workers to be able to get to the wharf.
Yeah. So don't quote me on this because I'm just remembering from my conversation with the project manager this morning. But he did the last redeck on this bridge, and he's the same guy that does a lot of the bridge work up here. So he says he's pretty familiar with the needs of Sayward for traffic. And he did mention, I think, again, he'll see tomorrow, he mentioned we have to wait until 8 or 8:30, I think he said, before we do any closure, because there's the morning rush for traffic. And
That didn't happen on this project you're doing now.
that's what's going to happen.
No, on the tree removal that you're doing.
Oh, the tree removal side, yeah, because that's not a full closure. So that's lane closures, yeah. So that's not. This is a bit different because it's a single lane bridge. It's closed. There's no way. Well, I guess you guys have a logging road that most of the locals know about. Yeah, but we can't.
Depends on the size of your vehicle.
Yeah, and we can't direct onto a Forest Service road in the province of forestry. Yeah, so we can't make an official tour with the forestry that stuff. But so they said, and then reopen at 12:30, I think. And then he did mention a school bus comes through around 3:20 or 3:30, he said. So they'll make sure, can't remember which.
One at 3:30.
Yeah.
And then one at about 4 for the actual.
Okay, yeah.
Actual Campbell River bus.
So yeah, he's aware of the school bus requirement, and I asked him too about emergency services needs, and he said, if an ambulance needs to get through, the crew will scramble and put something together to get it across the bridge. Because it is going to be all the stringers, all the redeck, everything, every piece of wood's coming off that bridge.
Good.
So yeah, it's a big project, but it's
And you're making it 2 lanes?
Yeah.
Yeah. Up or lower? would
Well,
be
then we
nice.
have to get engineers involved, and then it'd be another 3 years.
Yeah. Councilor Bichette?
What is the redecking lifespan once you complete it?
I'd have to get our bridge manager to say that for sure. I think that the ministry expects 15 years out of non-treated and 20 to 25 out of treated. So this is treated with. But again, that'd be a great question for Wayne Randall, the bridge manager, and he could give you the definitive.
Well, on behalf of council, staff, thank you very much for coming all the way up.
Thank you.
I appreciate that very much.
Yeah, no worries.
And the heads up on tomorrow's email.
And in the future, if you're going down to Campbell River and you see there's issue out there, and you can just reach out. I think you've got my number, and I'm happy to hop on our GPS system and see what's going on.
Sounds great. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Have a safe trip home. Okay, correspondence. E, from A to C be received. Motion, please.
I'll move that.
Second,
I'll second that.
discussion. Counselor Paulson,
I'd like to discuss the email A about the nurses need help. And I'm very empathetic towards nurses and their work. But when I read through this letter, I see that it's directed at the municipality to hire the people back. And I'm not sure why the nurses don't understand this, but the local governments don't hire and staff the facilities in the area. So I don't know if we want to respond to this and give them our best wishes for success with the union issue that they have. But I don't think it's something that we can support for our local government to hire these people back.
yeah, one of the things they mentioned is us buying our health clinic and the municipality running it and staffing it.
And that's
Obviously, they're referring to major municipalities and most of what they've put in there, and nothing we can do in terms of that. We don't have a structure where we also don't have where the nurses here were laid off or given the ultimatum to show up. So I agree.
just one other concern that they have under the second bullet on the first page where it says, if you have the courage
Yeah.
to hold back some of the taxes. I think there's a very big lack of understanding in how taxes and what we have the mandate to do with taxes and withholding them. So I thought the video was very good, but I was a little disappointed with the letter because it comes out like the municipality should jump in and help with this. So I just wanted to make those points.
Thank you. So do I have a motion to receive A for C, please? Second, sorry, your mic. Second,
I'll move that.
a second, please. Anybody?
I'll second that.
Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Council reports, we'll make sure it's on the agenda for the next meeting for the LGMA. Reports of committee, none. Mayor's report, none. Unfinished business, none. Staff report, Saybird Legion and Village Service Agreement on the Sheriff Shed. So that the council received the Saybird Legion Service Agreement, Sheriff Shed report for information and discussion. Motion, please.
I'll move that.
Second,
I'll second that.
discussion. All in favor? Yeah, we'll actually do discussion on the second part of there. All in favor, opposed? Okay, none, motion's carried. The council approved the renewal of the Saybird Legion and Village of Saybird Working Agreement, Sheriff Shed for 1 year. Do you have a motion, please?
I'll move that.
Second,
I'll second that.
okay, discussion. Councillor Paulson?
I just had a few comments on this under the service agreement. It talks under A, number 6, it talks about the respectful workplace policy. And I wonder if we could add in there to make sure that that policy is posted in print on in the Sheriff Shed, because it's just a reminder for people coming in there that, am I right? Am I on the right back here? Just so that it's visible for people to see so that the people don't have to keep reinforcing that, you know, stop swearing, you're not being respectful when it's posted there. And then the other suggestion that I had was when the under D, when the term is up, that it include that all of the stuff that's in the share shed be removed by the Legion. Because I know that the last time when it was emptied, it was one of the young staff people that were hired by Sayward Futures that spent about 4 days loading that into the dump. So that would be under D, the term.
And
And that's it. Just a few suggestions too.
under B9, I would suggest that the hours of operation be posted on the door as well.
Okay.
Now, whether that should be a Legion cost,
Should be.
then it can't go under B9. Any suggestions, CAO? Microphone, sorry.
At this point, I'm just hearing discussion. At the point that if you provide direction to staff, I think we can help this along.
Okay, if you can implement what Councillor Paulson said and my suggestion on the posted hours, please. Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Tinsley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just about Councillor Paulson's second point around the removal of items. I understand where it's coming from. Everything had sort of fallen apart, shall we say, the last time in pre-COVID. And so I think if we weren't going to renew this, or they weren't, like a lot of those items are donated by people, they would theoretically still be in good shape. We would find another operator for it. Otherwise, we're having donated items that are, I don't know where they would go, even if it was their responsibility. I guess you're saying that their responsibility to take it to like Sally Ann or something like that. I'm just a little confused. I think we should discuss that a little more.
Well, I think there should be, the share shed should be left in the same condition it was when it was given. Right? It's all been redone, nice and clean, and so on and so forth. So likely, like, this is a year contract, so likely there'll be a renewal process in place unless we decide not to go ahead. I agree with Councillor Paulson that they have to take whatever's there unless somebody else is going in to run it as a share shed. Then you could still get rid of those items through fundraising, correct?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, correct. So I think we need to cover that scenario. Because this is not their stuff or our stuff. It's stuff donated with people with good intentions that go somewhere. So I would just suggest that if we're going to tweak that wording, that would include that
Okay.
they wouldn't be responsible if we have someone else that's going to take it over. Otherwise, we're getting somebody to take a bunch of things out of there. I don't know, what would they come back the next day when the new contractor's in place and donate it all back? You know,
Fair enough.
that's what I'm trying to cover off
Okay,
here.
fair enough. So direction to staff on how you would word that to the next meeting? Councillor Bichette?
What about adding a possible end of the year share shed garage sale to liquidate some of the stuff? Prepare for the new year? Just an idea.
CAO?
Yeah, thank you. I'm at a bit of a disadvantage here because I don't know the history of the share shed. So with respect to posting hours on the door, I would suggest that be just added as number 8 under Legion responsibilities.
Okay.
That wouldn't be, I don't think that would be cost prohibitive. It's printing on a piece of paper and laminated. With respect to what happens with respect to if the contract is terminated by either party, the share shed should be left clean and as clean. I think that's easy. The nuance about what happens with its contents. So let me just say my understanding is items are donated to the Legion or to the share shed. If they're being to the share shed, are you educating me that the Legion is the body that organizes the sale of them? Or
Correct.
okay, so I'm not to assume that the items become the property of the Legion to sell. They become property of the share shed?
Correct. Essentially, the Legion runs it and sells the items and collects the money for that. They don't actively go door to door looking for items. Those items are brought to the share shed.
And the village owns the share shed.
That is correct.
So effectively what you're saying is that the items are being donated to the village and the village subcontracts the service to the Legion. So it's actually the belongings remain the property of the village is what I believe I'm hearing.
Councillor Paulson disagrees.
I think the way it's set up is the Legion is the body that puts out the requests for people to donate items to the share shed, and the Legion is the body that also recaps most of the donations from the donations, not sale, but the donations towards people buying those items. So it's kind of a fine line, but and I think it would be the same if it was any other organization running it, that whoever that organization was would be receiving those goods using the village's share shed as the place to gather them. But I don't see how that donated things would belong to the village. Anyway, that's just my.
Councillor Shed.
If we look at C number 11, it describes that how it should be split up 80-20 and overage will be forwarded to the Legion to allocate at their discretion. Does that answer your question?
That's money though.
From the revenues.
Yeah, but that's not the product itself after the lease expires is what Councillor Paulson.
Yeah, okay.
Tinsley are referring to.
All right, thank you.
Councillor Tinsley.
So just to add, I appreciate that Councillor Paulson has a different perspective on it. The when people in the community, it's all a talk about the share shed. There's really no talk when people come there. There's no talk about really who's running it. I mean, there's volunteers there. There's no representation of the Legion per se, right? So I guess I'm taking the opposite side, which would be coincide with what the CAO says, which is these items are donated as a part of the process to help the community. We own the building. The items are donated to the building, and we contract to an entity, currently the Legion, to staff it with volunteers. So that's the other interpretation.
Okay, CAO.
Yeah, thank you. Great discussion. I think what I'm hearing is that the way it's set up right now is that we, in fact, would be responsible for any if the program was to end and there was nobody to take on the volunteering, the contract, that we could ask the Legion to leave the facility clean and tidy and such, but it would be left clean and tidy with the contents inside of it. We could ask them to help us with maybe identifying some items that have been there for a long time, and maybe they could recommend, yeah, you could dispose of that. But I think it sounds like it's our responsibility, and I don't think it's an onerous one.
You
No.
accept that, Councillor Tinsley?
I'm fine with
Okay. Anybody else have anything, comments about the service agreement? No? CAO?
So if I understand correctly, I can add A8 post hours on the door, language to that effect. And I can add D15, some language around the share shed. If, if the contract is terminated by either party, the share shed will be left tidy. And with those additions, can I make those revisions and continue on with your next,
Please.
okay, thank you. Just wanted
Okay.
to be clear on that.
So we're on number 2 on the recommended resolution. So all in favor? Correct, because we're in discussion.
One year as amended.
As amended, okay. That council approved the renewal of the Sayward Legion and the Village of Sayward Working Agreement as amended share shed for 1 year. And that council authorized the CAO to execute said service agreement on behalf of the municipality following the amendments. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Regional grant opportunity. Salmon River flood story map. That the report from the CAO be received. Motion,
I'll move that.
second,
I'll second that.
discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none. It's carried, and that is a part of the Village of Sayward ongoing work in relation to disaster risk reduction and the application of financial assistance and the intake number 2, 2023 disaster risk reduction climate adaptation grant be authorized for submission to the UBCM collaboration with the Strathcona Regional District. Motion, please.
I'll move that.
Second,
I'll second that.
discussion. Councillor Gilkin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is there going to be a link to the story map on the village website or on the SRD website for people to access, or do you have to go to a separate web browser for that? Or where to find it in general?
I would assume once it's created and done, then we can request to have a link put on ours, on our webpage, and also advertise it around Sayward. Good point.
Thank you.
You. Any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. And that the Strathcona Regional District be authorized to receive and manage the funding on behalf of the Village of Sayward if the application is successful. Motion, please.
I'll move that.
Thank you. Second,
I'll second that.
discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. The Village of Sayward audited plan report. That we receive the Village of Sayward audited planning report for information and discussion. Motion, please.
I'll move that.
Second,
I'll second that.
discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. The grant opportunity for the Rural Advisory Program. The council received the grant opportunity Rural Advisory Program report. Motion?
Move that.
Thank you. Second. Just smack that.
I'll second that.
Discussion. You're next. All in favor? Opposed? None, carried. And the council directs staff to complete and submit the grant application to Island Coastal Economic Trust Rural Advisory Program for the purpose of funding a community-based advisor for 1 year term. Motion, please.
I'll move that.
Second.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Bylaws, Code of Conduct Amendment. That the Code of Conduct Amendment Bylaw 495, 2023 be given fourth and final reading. Do I have a motion, please?
I'll move that.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Do I have discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. New business, we had none. Public question period. For the purpose of the public question period is enable citizens ask question council about issues that are important to the citizen asking the question. Speakers are asked to limit their question to one each, and if time permits, everyone will have the opportunity to ask questions. The speaker may ask a second question. Citizens will be asked to state their name, address, height, and what they had for dinner. Anybody? No? Anybody online? Perfect. In camera. In camera, in accordance with section 92 of the community charter, this council meeting will be closed to the public at this time in order for the council to give considerations to matter in accordance with the following sections of the community charter, 90-1C and 90-1K. Do I have a motion, please?
I'll move that.
Second.
I'll second that.
Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Adjournment. We shall reconvene at